There we go. Good catch. Okay. There's always like one thing that I like forget to like update. All right. All right, so it is 2:30, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I think we're gonna probably have a couple more people join us, so I'll keep reposting those links. But if somebody could, oh, and I'll record in just a second, but if somebody could, once we get going, if people keep asking for links or whatever, if somebody could just copy and paste the sign in and the slides as more and more people get in and as we kind of get started and whatnot. We are, oh, granted, I think you started recording, so thank you. So we are recording this session, so make sure, so we'll have them posted later so that you guys can watch it and kind of go back through it and whatnot. So I'm really excited. That's one of the things I'm most excited for, like this virtual like world, is the ability to share things and kind of watch things. And I think like the accessibility of things is all right there. So welcome. I'm so excited that you guys are joining me too on Friday. I think this is like one of the last sessions. And I know it's been like 3 days of learning and like your brains are probably full. But I really appreciate you guys for being here on a Friday. And so thank you for joining. The first thing I want you guys to do, and I totally stole this from a class I'm taking, and I think Brianna used it earlier this week too, but it's for my own selfish reasons, and that is, what have you been binging? And so I totally love this question because I totally like just steal the ideas, and it gives me ideas to what to do when I'm kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. So if you guys could introduce yourself in the chat and with your name, your site, and then what you've been binging. And this could be TV shows, it could be podcasts. I saw somebody in the chat said like they've been binging the outdoors, which is really good, taking advantage of this good weather. So if you guys could just introduce yourselves in the chat for a minute or so. For me personally, I've been binging, this is super dorky for me to admit as like a 30-something-year-old, but at the start of quarantine, my friends and I got Animal Crossing so that we could kind of sort of be connected together. And so I've been binging this one guy called Chase Crossing on YouTube, just because he has like a really relaxing voice, but it's also given me ideas since I feel like I'm a YouTuber now in this virtual world, like chatting to myself. It's kind of helped me like pick up on like things that work and things that don't work. And so I don't know if you guys want to know, like I highly recommend just like watching YouTubers to kind of, because I feel like that's what I'm doing right now, is just doing live streams. So highly recommend it. All right, lots of good things that I'm seeing. Downton Abbey, Parks and Recs, one of my favorites. All right, and I'll repost the sign in and links. All right. Oh, and chat. Love that. One of the cooking shows we've been also binge watching is Binging with Babish. He's one of our favorites that we've been binging and everything too. I don't know if I'm not really much of a cook, but I like watching cooking shows for whatever reason. So that's where I'm at. All right. All right, as we're continuing, you guys, if you have not posted it yet, go ahead and keep posting and introducing yourselves. There are a lot of you guys in here today. So again, if you guys can help me moderate the chat a little bit, repost links, I'll be reposting them periodically too, but just to kind of help each other out. And I'm gonna keep my eye out on the chat and present as well. But if you have a question, feel free to ask in the chat. I like the back chatter thing going, and I'll go over all of that in a minute. So welcome. We are going to be doing using Google Slide functions to create more organized lessons and creative applications. I really love Google Slides because you can do so much with Google Slides. And I kind of had an aha moment at the beginning of summer of where it's not just presentations. And I think I kind of was stuck on that. Google Slides was like just for presentations. And then even though I knew it could use other things, like I have friends that create newsletters with it and whatnot, I was kind of stuck in this presentation mode. And what really kind of changed my mind was thinking of Google Slides as kind of your creative like outlet. Like this is what I used to do on like the old school, like Microsoft Word, and being able to like manipulate it a little bit better. So I really want us to kind of think about Google Slides beyond the presentations that we kind of normally think of it as. So for our agenda today, we're going to go over the norms and then overview of what can I do. I'll kind of talk about like the main key components that I'm pointing out in this presentation. We'll review some intermediate skills, and then we'll have some playtime. So I'll give you guys about 15, 20 minutes to kind of make one of the things, so either a HyperDoc, choice board, or whatnot. And then we'll rejoin and do some closure. And then it'll be Friday and the weekend can start. So for our norms, use the chat. I really like having the chat available. I like the back chatter and when people say hi to each other and things like that. So ask those questions. And if you are asking a question, if you could just put a question mark in front of your question, just to kind of help me out a little bit to kind of spot it and pinpoint it and make sure that I see it. Also, most of us are, like, I think all of us are doing it already, except for me, and that's to mute your audio. If you do have a question or anything and you want me to say it or I haven't answered it yet, feel free to unmute yourself though and kind of interrupt me and stop me so that I can make sure that I get to your question. Participate with focus and positivity. And then in case of technical difficulty, I like to say just keep swimming, do the best that you can. Hopefully my Wi-Fi does not cut out this time, but yesterday's presentation, it cut out like 2 or 3 times. So if that happens, just be patient. I'm gonna come right back on as soon as it picks back up. And I've kicked my husband off the Wi-Fi right now too, so hopefully I won't have those issues again. But if I do, just be patient. I'll be right back on in just a second. And then the last part is I will do my best to provide follow-up support. So I'm keeping an eye on the chat. We're gonna do a Padlet at the end as well. But feel free to ask me any questions or email me any questions. I will try to look at the chat and kind of follow up with you if I need to. But sometimes with the chat, especially if I lose the Wi-Fi, I'm going to lose all of the chat. So the best way is like to put those questions on the Padlet at the end, or to email me if you need further follow-up. So don't hesitate to email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So for overview, what the main things I'm going to focus on for this presentation is looking at like HyperDocs, choice boards, digital notebooks, apps, and then also looking at other additional add-on and other tools. Now that's a lot. We're not going to look at everything together. We're going to have some playtime where you're going to focus on one of those things. But really, if you have kind of the basics with Google Slides, you can do anything. And I like this Bitmoji because like once you know the basics and kind of have like these more intermediate skills down, you can really do anything. Like nobody can stop you from whatever you want to do with it, and whatever you want your students to do with it as well. So those are the kind of main things that we're going to focus on and have some playtime for. Before that though, I'm going to talk about some major some skills. So there's 5, I call them intermediate skills. I don't know what Google would call them, but these are what I call intermediate skills for Google Slides. And that includes hyperlinking, changing backgrounds, looking at the image options, our video options, and then also changing the page size. If you can do those things, you can do all of like the HyperDocs, choice boards, whatever you want to do with slides. So those are the key intermediate skills we're going to focus in on and kind of review first. There are more tutorials on Google Slides. This was another presentation that I did, was sliding into Google Slides. And so I really like to build my presentations to kind of be more of like manuals with things. So feel free to click on pretty much anything in the presentations. But if you aren't quite intermediate, or you don't think yourself as intermediate, or if you just want to know other skills with Google Slides, I would highly recommend checking this out too, because it kind of breaks down these skills as well. All right, looks like no questions so far, so I'm gonna keep going. All right, so the first skill I'm gonna go over, and just kind of like watch for right now is what I would recommend. And then when playtime, if you wanna go back to the skills, that's fine, instead of focusing on the other things. But just kind of watch right now. On each of these slides, I include a little tutorial too. So as you're kind of working on this at your own, you can come back to this and like kind of follow through. I'm the type of person that I kind of need to see it done first, and then I need to like have a video next to me or a step-by-step guide as I'm going through it the first time or like the third time. So that's how I kind of try to build this as well. So all of these videos, all these skills have a video that goes along with it. So with hyperlinking is linking up to something else. So I think most of us are pretty familiar with hyperlinking. So to hyperlink, I will highlight a word, and then I can either do my right click, or I can go up to this little chain icon here. Depending on where your the size of your windows and everything too, you might have to go to the more buttons here. But to insert the link, you just click on it. And then a lot of us use hyperlinks to like go to other documents. So you might have them go to your Flipgrid or what, like your Google form or whatnot. But I also want to make sure that we point out that you can link to slides in this, like other in the presentation. So this is great for building like choice boards or digital notebooks because you can link directly to those slides. So if I want this to go to my objective, I can easily link it to my objective. One thing I would caution with linking it within slides though, is don't click on next slide or previous slide unless you always want it to go to the next slide. I like to edit things a lot, and so a lot of times I'll move things around. And so if I click on previous slide or next slide, when I move this somewhere else, it will no longer link to that particular slide. It will link to whatever is now next. So I always like to link it to the particular slide that I want to link it to. And then so apply, and now it's hyperlinked. The other thing you can do with hyperlinks is to hyperlink images. So I just took my Bitmoji here, but I can do the same thing. So I can go through and I can hyperlink like using this button here. And I can hyperlink the same way with these. And that's really great for creating buttons. So I can hyperlink images. So if I always want to have like a home button, if that's an image, I can just use that image. I'm also a visual person. So a lot of times when I have my students go to Flipgrid, I can actually have them like have the Flipgrid icon and then that hyperlinks to whatever they want to link it to and so forth. But I did mention buttons. So to create the buttons, I'll go to my shapes. And then I usually just pick squares because I don't know, I'm not very creative when it comes to buttons, but that's what I usually pick. And then whatever I want this button to do, I'm going to type it out and hyperlink it to whatever. And now I have kind of a working button. So you can have, this is kind of what the apps are based off of. And these tabs that are on the side, if you want to build your own digital notebook, these tabs are what are just essentially just shapes that are kind of created like that. All right, I'm going to pause. And yes, so Erin, that's exactly right. So if you link it to, so it depends on what it means for linking it to. So if I go back to my link, so say I want to, if I link this to the next slide, if my next slide is slide 9 and it's called changing backgrounds, if I were to move it up to here, that link will now be slide 10 instead of slide 8. So if I wanted to make sure that I always go to this changing background slide, no matter where it is, then I need to find it exactly. So if I remove this link and link it again, then if I wanted to always go to the changing background slide, then I have to specifically put it there. But if once I do that, I can move that slide to wherever it needs to go. All right. So any other questions real quick? You do need, so don't know if I quite got your question, Chloe, but they don't need to be emailed to the student. Like, so it'll link wherever you want it to go. So if you wanted to link to like a Google form or whatever, you can link directly there. Just make sure that they have permissions. And that is one thing with hyperlinks, is just make sure that whatever you're linking to, you have the shared permissions set correctly. So if you're linking to another document, or if you're linking to a even a video within your drive, you need to make sure that it's shared correctly. And that will avoid the like request access by student, like pop up or whatever. So just double check whenever you link something outside of Google, the Google slide, that you check that share settings. All right. So the next one is changing backgrounds. And again, this is really great. I think we can kind of think of this as like presentations, like where you make it fancy. This template has the background. It has this notebook style background. But I want us again to kind of think outside of the backgrounds. So I had to use this blank slide because I found out yesterday that when you have an extensive template like this one, you can't change the background and it won't actually really do anything. So if you are using a template, make sure you have a blank slide if you want to use a specific background for a certain slide. So to change the background, can go up to here where it says background. or I can go to slide, change background. And so for this image, I'm going to pull something from my Google Drive, but you have lots of different options for backgrounds. And this one was my post. So for this, I'm going to actually use a prompt. So if I want students to write in this box, one of the complaints I hear from teachers a lot is afraid to give students slides, have them make a copy of slides and give it to them, because then they can manipulate everything that's kind of on the slide. So one kind of workaround this is to change the background to whatever template that you have. Now I can't move these boxes. Technically I can if I was to change the background, but it's harder for students to manipulate it. So now they can just create the text box and be able to write whatever they want to write right into there. So this is a one kind of workaround where they won't be able to move it. This could also be really great, and I included the video on how to do it here for drag and drop activities. So you can create those buttons or for your choice. I'm not creative right now, but if I just say button and I want them to sort something, I can now have them just put the shapes right here and have the columns or the Venn diagram or whatever as my background. And now I can move it around and have the students be able to move it around. And they can change the background, Aaron, so it's still not perfect, but they can, it's just one more step that they have to do, one more button that they have to find in order to change it versus being able to manipulate the template right there. All right, any other questions? Okay, two more skills that I want to go over, and that's your image options. So I have two images here, one just some random roller skates and a fish. And these I simply found by going to the insert image and then searching the web. And one really great thing about finding images this way is that I know that my copyright options are going to be correct. So these are all going to be free to reuse and to modify. I don't have to worry about copyright issues. Versus when you go to the Google search bar, you may not have the correct copyright images to use it into your slides. So that's how I found these ones. The first skill I want to go over with images is to crop. So when I double click on that image, I can move this. So say I have all these roller skates here and I only want the pink one. So now I can crop that image and I just have that one roller skate that I can use for wherever I want to use it for. So this is really great. And if I made a mistake, I can double click on it again and expand it as many times as I need to. The second one I want to go over is to recolor. So when you click on the image, you have this format options or tab that comes up. So when I click on that, I have lots of different things. Most of the time I've ignored these other options, but as I kind of been getting more and more into Google Slides and presentations and kind of using this with students a lot more, these other options have become really helpful. So if I want a particular size, if I'm using lots of different images, I can really specify on the size. This position one has been really great, especially with using multiple image. If I want them to line up perfectly, I can line it up perfectly here. But what I mostly use is this recolor. So let's say I don't really want this black lined fish. When I go to it, I can go to the recolor, and I have lots of different recolor options here. Now this doesn't work for every image. Some images you won't have the choice, but for a lot of the images you can actually recolor. So this is really great for using this as well. And so that's how it goes in. And then of course you have your adjustments, your drop shadow, and your reflection that you can play around with image options as well. And I'm seeing lots of really good suggestions on the back, on the chat going on. So thanks, Haley, for the Noun project. Those icons are really, really awesome to use. I've used a lot of the Noun projects before too, and I think there's even an add-on that you can use for it as well. And then, yeah, and then if you don't want to change the background, you can just put the drag and drop in, save it as a JPEG. And that's basically what I did for this one, was just download it as a picture so it goes in and have it as the background. All right. And then the next skill is our video options. So again, we can insert videos into it and audio as well now, is the newest feature for there. But if I insert video, and so I'm gonna just find one on YouTube, my go-to video for presentations is Happy, just because I like the song. You can't not be unhappy when you listen to it. But when you insert the video, you have these format options that come up. And this is what's really, really key, is this video playback. So I don't want the full song. Oops, I went too far. I don't want the full song. I only want to play 30-second clip of this song. So I'm going to start this at 30 seconds, and I'm going to end it at 1 minute. Now, when I go to it in the presentation and when I go to present it, it will only present that 30-second clip. And that's really awesome, especially if you only want them. I use this a lot of times with songs when I have them do walk around activities or transition to things where I don't necessarily need the full song. I don't want the full song playing, but I want them, I only want 30 seconds or whatnot. If I'm showing specific clips of something, I can easily manipulate it. I've also had students do that with presentations too, where they have to show me, when they present, I want them to include multimedia in the presentation, but I don't want to watch a 10-minute video as part of their presentation. So they have to narrow it down to the essential part that they want to show. All right, and the last one, and it is a really easy one, is you are not limited to this page size. So this page size here, this is kind of our standard. This is what we think of with Google Slides, but you are not limited to this at all. So I chose this horizontal view because it's easier with Google Meets. But if I'm doing digital notebooks, if I'm doing an app, I actually want to change it. So to change it, you can go to the file and go to page setup. And then I go to custom. And if I'm not going to change it now because I don't want to screw with the presentation. But if I'm doing an app, the best format for phones, if I'm creating an app with Google Slides, is 9:16. For notebooks, the kind of standard size is 7.5:10, but you can change it to whatever length. So if you want more traditional looking notebooks, traditional looking documents with it, you feel free to change this and make it look like a traditional notebook and whatnot. So that's our page setups. Okay. So that was a lot of information, and that's kind of the basic skills. What I want us to do now for the next 15 minutes is we're going to play around with these things. And so there's a couple of different options that I've put out there for Google Slides. So we have HyperDocs, we have choice boards, digital notebooks, apps, and then some traditional tools, which I'll talk about in a minute. For these tabs are linked, so these are all hyperlinks. So to go to whichever one you want to, you can just click on the link here, or I kept the section dividers in so it's easy to see on the side where it is at. And then for each slide and activity, there's going to be a sandbox. So this is going to be kind of what to do or aim to do while we're playing around. So for that, let me show you an example of the HyperDocs. So on each slide, there will be a little intro. There'll also be a little intro video as well for me. There's some samples. So for example for HyperDocs, I have the things that I've used in my class. There's also a lot of templates that I've included in here. And then also check on the side. I put additional resources as a sticky note on the side. So make sure that you check on the sides and kind of scroll back and forth for your slide. The only weird one is, or the one that doesn't follow that format, is the additional tools. And these are simply just tools that you can use within Google Slides. So something to kind of play around with. So we have our push to slides, our Nearpod, and then making the GIFs with Google Slides as well. So for 15 minutes, if we can play around, so figure out what you want to kind of play around with. If you want to stay in skills, that's okay too. If you kind of want to play around with the skills, let me go back to where I was. But we're simply just going to play for 15 minutes. I will be in this chat and I will answer questions as they come up. It's easier for me to kind of demonstrate and talk through questions. So if you want to leave here and come back, and we'll come back at 3:10. So if you want to leave here and then come back, actually, I'll give you guys until 3:15 because this should go till 3:30. So come back at 3:15. And if you want to kind of have a little bit more focus and watch the videos and whatnot on your own, but I'll stay on this chat until then and whatnot. So let's 3:15 is when we'll come back and rejoin and regroup. Oh, thanks, guys. You guys are all real quiet. Crystal, I see your question. Let's go to that slide just to double check everything. It's the templates will take you to templates there. Is it taking you somewhere like, because so when you click on the templates, it will take you to like the Google slide like master copies. So all of those like so that you can use it to make a template.
No, it told me to go to like add an extension. And so I followed those instructions, and then it kept saying, add this extension, add that extension. And it was like, hide your browsing history with this extension. And I didn't see anything about notebook templates.
Oh, that's weird. Which link did you click on? Do you know exactly which one?
I clicked on, let's see, this is slide, no, slide, I lost it. Slide 20, under templates, the blue notebook where it says here goes your title. I just clicked on that.
Okay, so that one is, it should take you to this site. This is the Slide Mania's page.
Let me come back here. Yeah, I didn't see that. I'll try again.
Okay, I'll put the link
Oh yeah,
in.
wait, it went there, and then I clicked the start, and then from there it started wanting to add extensions for
Oh
me.
yeah, that's just some advertisement that's on the side of their page. I would kind of ignore
So
what's on the side there. Just click on to use their template. If you scroll down to where it says like where it actually has the template, click on the using Google Slides and it will take you to that so that you can make a copy of your own.
all right, I'll try that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amber, I have a question about digital notebooks. Are you able to hear me? It's Maggie.
Yeah. Hey, Maggie.
Hey. So let's say we have students, we want to have each student have their own digital notebook. And just for example, sake, let's say that one of the tabs says warm up and another tab says classwork, etc. And so I want to have students click on the warm up tab every day, right? And they would be adding, for example, whatever problems or assignment that they're working on in that section. Does the do the links automatically like move down so that, because we're going to be adding pages eventually, right? Like a real notebook.
Yeah.
Would the tab, if the tab says classwork, and when we first started it was on page 5, but eventually after having to add so many different pages for their warm-ups, that that coursework actually starts like on page 50, for example, with the hyperlink, will it automatically know to move to where that actual section starts, or will it always link to page 5?
As long as you don't click on, so like that's when you go to the slides in the presentation, if you go to like where it says like, I know it says slide 1, but like click on where the correct header. So like if I say my objective and my agenda is where my warm-ups are. If I click on that, no matter where my objectives and agendas end up in my slides, it will always go to that slide.
Okay,
If
perfect.
you click on the next slide and previous slide, though, it will always go to whatever the next slide is or whatever the previous slide is. So if you change it, it will change as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Good questions, guys. Any other questions? All right, we'll get started in a couple minutes. Keep asking those questions as they come up, though.
Hi, Amber.
Hey.
This is Jackie calling, speaking with you. And when you inserted your Bitmojis, it was simply a matter of inserting, well, it's not an image, it's not a video. What was it?
It's actually considered an image. So
Okay.
so any GIFs are considered images. That's how Google is reading them.
Okay. And by sharing the hyperlinks, choice boards, digital notebooks, apps, and the other items we've gone through, clearly those are key elements you believe are important. Are there, if you had to choose the top 3 that teachers, English teachers, but teachers should explore, use, try, what would you say? And I know it can be very subjective depending who I'm asking this question to, but I'm asking you.
Yeah. So if I was, the main thing where I got started was kind of looking at HyperDocs. And so those are really kind of engaging, interactive lessons. So like if you go to like the HyperDocs one is, you can see like what I did with distance learning with my 2 lessons here. I just chose 2, but those are the 2 that I chose. Those are kind of where if you were just getting started, I would highly recommend exploring HyperDocs more. The choice boards are really kind of like what you would, and the rest of them I think would be kind of more of like how you're setting up your class. So like if you want to give students more control over their learning and how they're learning it, choice boards are perfect for that. Digital notebooks I'm going to be implementing more this year and kind of looking at that style and things. But I would say if you like need like your go-to thing, HyperDocs is where it would be at.
Excellent. And finally, some of those areas where, oh, please, please don't do this. What are some of those areas where we may be so eager to embrace so much that we end up like overwhelming, putting too much, just basically too much information on the page, or what things to be cautious about?
The thing that I did, and I can talk about like my experience like from March, is that I really chose like when I did like my slides and made my like lessons into those slides, is I chose to do like a video instructions for each slide because I didn't want to overwhelm the students with too much information. A lot of teachers were doing videos and they're great. But then I like after a certain point, they kind of like they lose interest. Yeah. So I did it for every slide. So I really tried to make my slides, especially for students, really concise and to the point and visually appealing. And so I would go, I would say, I would try to videotape yourself as much as possible because it kind of cuts down on some of that wordiness that they see on the slides. Try to give like videotape yourself doing the instructions as much as possible, and then just make it visually appealing. And so if you can use a button instead of a hyperlink, that's just one other factor that's, a little bit more interactive, a little bit more visually appealing with it, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jay.
Yeah. And then I have a question about showing how to format the 30-second clip. So I can go over that again. So once you have your video inserted, it should pop up automatically. But if you already have a video inserted like this one, you would just click on it and it says the format options here. And then I just chose the 30 seconds and 1 minute just as an example, but you could start from anywhere. So it allows you to kind of view the video in this little slide thing here. So you can kind of really pinpoint, but you can just start the video at wherever you want to start the video and then end it at wherever you want to end it at. So that's how you would format the video. The other things I didn't cover though is the audio play while presenting. I don't really tend to use that a lot because unless I want kind of like a pow factor if I'm giving a lecture and want kind of like music to start playing right away. But those are some other things you can do. And you can also mute the audio. So if you have an image that you want them to see, or like, in the movie or like in the clip that you're showing, but you don't want to have the audio that go with it, you can also mute the audio for your videos as well. All right, so we'll give just about 1 more minute and then we'll rejoin. All right. I think one of the biggest things that I'm going to have to get used to in this virtual world is the wait time when you can't like walk around the room and kind of get the visual cues that you usually see with students. That's why I feel like watching YouTube live streams is a good way to kind of get used to this format a little bit to kind of see, because they've been doing it for a while. But so as we kind of get back and kind of wrap up, the first thing I want us to do is to kind of, whatever area you chose to cover, if you could just go to this Padlet and write either a ha, like something that you like, your big idea, your takeaway, a question, or if you feel brave and you have something, even if it's not complete, if you want to share what you've done. So the Padlet, I posted the link in the chat. It's also on the slides as well. And for the Padlet, there's a couple different categories. So if you did, oops, did I not link it up correctly? No, for whatever reason, it's not working. Let me fix that link for you guys there. Swear there's always something that goes, there's always something that goes wrong with technology, but that's why we go with the flow and we keep swimming. So let me pull up the correct link here. With the Padlets, though, as I'm getting it pulled up, what it is just, there's a couple of categories. So if you worked on your HyperDocs, if you worked on or if you explored the choice boards or anything like that, and you guys have already started filling it in, go ahead and fill in kind of your big aha moment, your takeaway, your question, anything. I will be linking up these and kind of answering the questions. So I will be going through the questions on this and like going through this. So if there's something I don't quite answer in the chat, or if you want to post it on the Padlet, I will be going through it tonight and answering any questions that are lingering there as well. Oh, just the extra text before the week. That's probably what it was. And then I did give you guys the ability on this Padlet to like and to comment on each other's stuff. So if you see something that's really cool or like whatnot, if you want to go ahead and give a like to the person, or if you want to add a comment to each other, you can do that as well. I like doing these Padlets with students too, because it's kind of a good way to kind of share thinking and have that kind of collective thinking and kind of see what everybody else is doing too. So I use them a lot with my students. Give about 1 more minute. For me, I use Padlet in all sorts of ways. So Padlet is really easy to use. It is limited. I forget how many Padlets that you can create, but I've always just been able to delete my Padlets that I've used before, and I've just been able to stick around with the free version. And I use it in all sorts of ways. So I've used it in the beginning of classroom as kind of the warm up or mid closure. A lot of times if I'm having them, it's 3 Padlets. I've had Padlet for a long time, so I must get more.
That you didn't know that you're invited to Oceanside.
Yeah.
So I texted her. This is what I said. I just want to let you know so you're in the loop.
The 12th to the 14th.
I think
7th.
that we have a mic on there. Okay, so
So
um,
she said, did Sean mention we invited him to come with us August 7th through the 12th?
Jennifer, I think your mic is on.
We rented a house on the beach in Oceanside near Greg's parents. Yes, he did. Should be clear by then. If you still
Okay. So it wasn't limited, and now they have it. So with how I use it with Padlet is a lot of times to share thinking kind of like this. So if I want them to kind of see this, I'll also use it to kind of like if I'm having to do summaries at the end, again, kind of things that I want that kind of collective hive mind kind of thinking, kind of collaborating, kind of sharing. And then I also do a couple things on Adobe Spark where like I'll have them create like a poster or something, and a lot of times I'll have them create it on there too. So I'll have them kind of share along with there as well. So that's kind of the question with that. The other question I see is about Flipgrid. I love Flipgrid. I've presented on Flipgrid. I love having them record, and I'm all about that student talking. So Flipgrid has been awesome for me, especially in this virtual world, like having them do it. I've taken a class this summer, and we're using Flipgrid at that level. So it's been pretty awesome to use. Students, I will say, is that students will have mixed thoughts about Flipgrid because a lot of classes are now doing it. And so like I see that comment about that they did not like Flipgrid. And I kind of, when I've given student surveys of like what they liked, what they didn't like, I get like mixed results and stuff. But I think that power of listening and speaking is super important. A lot of students really like being able to see and connect with each other. Some students don't like that they can be videotaped and whatnot. But I think speaking and listening is such a huge important thing, and Flipgrid is definitely key there. All right. So to kind of wrap up and to close, I want to also kind of extend this out too, is like, don't be afraid to assign group work and classwork to Google Slides. So like when we do this, a lot of the times, now I wouldn't do this for like big presentations or something like that, but I've used Google Slides to assign to groups for vocab. So this is an example of a Unit 1 vocab that we did. I had them, I think there was like 15 vocab words or whatnot, and so I split them into groups, and they were kind of responsible for kind of sharing and putting this together. So the Unit 1 vocab here, I had instructions that kind of goes down, and then what I did is in the speaker notes, I assigned a student's name in the group, and then they were responsible for creating this, and then this became their study guide for however long we were doing this vocab for. So each student was responsible. This is the same information you would find on the vocab sheets, but now it's kind of more collective. It's kind of in a bit different format. I really, again, like using Google Slides instead of like traditional documents too, because of the ability to put in video clips and things like that. So you can use it in that way. The other way that I've used it, and this is kind of born out of pure laziness on my end, where using it for group presentations, I think we've all been in the class where like the students have like you assign them presentations, they go to present, and then you don't have access on your computer to use it, so then you have to wait for access and stuff like that. So this was kind of born out of like that frustration. So I decided to have them do a group presentation. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for complicated presentations, but this was done as part of background information for the novel we were reading. So I took the worksheet that Springboard had us do and like the presentation, and I just kind of made them slides. And then so each group was then responsible for 2 slides. The first slide was where their sources, where they were found. I put in some possible questions and answers to look out for in the speaker notes. And then the next slides were their actual presentation that they presented in front of the class. So this was kind of an easier way that I didn't have to kind of click and get out of slide presentations for each group. It was just all one presentation right there. And I've had a lot of success with kind of doing things that way. Again, this is not for complicated presentations, but like for small presentations, like background information, things like that, where the students are kind of teaching each other that, I highly recommend to do it that way. All right, and looking at the screencast is definitely using, or the screencast for Flipgrid and things like that, or instead of Flipgrid is definitely an option. All right, so we're coming towards the closer. I know I appreciate you guys being here on a Friday, especially like when we've had 3 awesome days of learning and so much information. So I will put the link to the feedback here. I will stick around if you guys have any questions though. So if you guys have any questions of how I do things in the classroom, what I'm looking towards next year, any of that stuff, or just how to do any of the things and the skills, because I know there was a lot here, feel free to stick around and to ask. And you guys can at any time hit me up on email as well. I do have to preface this that I have a 6-month-old at home, so I try to get back as soon as I can, but sometimes it might take me a day or so to get back. So just, yeah, and thanks for being here, guys. Oh, and it does have yesterday's date because I forgot to change the link on it. Let me, I think it should still be okay to use from yesterday's because it's the same presentation. Thanks, Claude. I wish we could see each other on the track sometime soon. Oh, and for getting students' notebooks to have their own individual one, you would assign it into Google Classroom just like you would for any other assignment. So when you go to add it, when you go into Google Classroom and choose it from your drive, it will give the option to make a copy for each student as well. So you can do that. That's how I assign it, so they can each get their own copy. If you were doing group work, so the same group was working on the presentation, you can actually select which students you want. You don't have to assign it to the whole class. You can pick and choose which students you want. And then for receiving this recording, I think Brianna and Jen are putting something together that they'll send out. She has actually access to this recording as well, but if you don't see it in a couple days, I have yesterday's, I have access to yesterday's recording, so I definitely have a copy of that one that I can share out as well.
Thank you again, Ms. Dar. Have a good weekend.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Madrigal.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Could you put the link to the sign in again? Because when we signed back in, the chat was, all gone. The text was gone.
Yes, let me pull that up again.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend as well. Let me pull up the eval again.
Thanks, Amber. Just want to say hi.
Hey, I always like seeing LSL faces.
Yeah. Miss you all, and looking forward to, getting a good start this year. Thanks so much. Great presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good rest of your dwindling summer.
Enjoy the little one. Yes.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Amber. I'll be watching this
Again. Oh, yeah. If you have any questions, reach out. Thanks, guys. And again, like I said, if you have any questions, reach out. I'll get back as quick as I can.